Now we would like to invite our next speaker. Our next speaker is Mohamed Alsayed. Mohamed Alsayed is the founder and CEO of Accelera. His topic today is preparing Gen Z for jobs in a Gen AI world. Very interesting topic. Welcome, Mohamed Alsayed.
Assalamu alaikum. Sabah al khair. My name is Mohamed Alsayed, and it gives me great pleasure, Your Excellencies and distinguished guests, to talk about a topic which is very dear to my heart, which is basically preparing Generation Z for a post-digital generative AI world. The clicker is not working. Somebody help me with this. There we go. So if we look back into history, there's a corporate graveyard full of companies, entities, organizations, institutions that have not adapted to change, that have not kept up with technology, and that have not rode certain waves. Now, an interesting one, and I come from 25 years of working in telecoms, is what happened to all the telecom giants in Bahrain, Batelco, Zain, STC, and so on, with the advent of WhatsApp, Viber, and social media applications and the negative impact on revenues. We also know in transportation what has happened to established transport networks like taxi companies, like railroad, like buses. With the advent of Uber, there were riots in Europe and the UK, and so on. And in entertainment, of course, we remember the giants, or some of us remember giants like Blockbusters and Virgin Entertainment, and how these were upended and replaced by players such as Netflix and Rami, Apple Music, and so on. Now, all of these are isolated incidents that affected different industries. However, the biggest change to date is coming. There's a new world order that is made up of terms and technologies and changes, the most interesting of which is generative AI. And this was talked about in great detail with the previous panel. Now, generative AI is going to have an impact so large that it's going to be larger than anything that has affected businesses in the past. Larger than the impact of the birth of the personal computer, larger than the birth of the internet, larger than the advent of social media. An impact so large that by the end of next year, $300 billion will be spent on generative AI worldwide. An impact so large that it is going to change every single industry, every single vertical in the world, in every country. An impact so large that the job market as a whole will change. If there are any teachers in the audience, are there any teachers in the audience? A few. Half of you will be replaced by generative AI. Are there any coders, programmers in the audience? That's a good thing, because 96% of you are going to be replaced by generative AI. Okay? This data has been gathered by LinkedIn's community of almost 1 billion members. So the predictions, I personally would take quite seriously. So when we talk about generative AI, the first thing that comes to mind is ChatGPT, because that is the most popular application. It's been popularized by all the students getting essays written. It's been popularized by all the marketers getting campaigns drafted. But the reality is, if you look at the generative AI landscape, applications have been appearing at an alarming rate. And they cover all industries, all use cases, whether it's video, audio, coding, medicine, absolutely every vertical. And it's growing at such a rate that the expectation is there are going to be 110,000 generative AI applications by the end of next year. Interestingly, in charge of using generative AI and thriving in a post-digital world is a very interesting generation, Generation Z. Now, Generation Z is basically people that were born between 4 and 24 years ago. So if you have kids, anybody have kids? Almost everyone. They are in nurseries, they are in schools, they are in universities, and they have just started in the last couple of years appearing in corporations, in the job market. Now, this particular generation is different than all the others because if you look at the descriptions, there's a lot of polite words, a lot of positive descriptions, but the summary of it all is the generation is relatively selfish, addicted to their phones, prone to anxiety, and are generally quirky people. So they're not the best equipped to handle a huge responsibility that's going to be thrown on their shoulders. So in order to bridge this gap, in order to prepare this generation of youngsters to shoulder the responsibility of not only surviving, but thriving and driving corporations and entities and governments and countries to success, is a bridge which is education. There's a huge responsibility placed on educational establishments, so schools and universities, in particular universities at this stage, and in particular the public sector, which has generally been slower to adapt to some of the newer curriculums and syllabuses. There's also a huge responsibility on the custodians of education, so the regulators, the ministries of education, the communities that drive change in education. These entities need to take leadership positions in order to help Generation Z succeed. So what is required? What are the changes that need to take place for education to serve a generation that is going to have to deal with generative AI and a post-digital world? Well, we ask the experts. So a panel of experts, the World Economic Forum, in their annual meeting just a few months ago in Switzerland, studied the issue and came up with some recommendations. They came up with 5 characteristics that need to be built into curriculums and need to be instilled into students. And those are analytical thinking, creative thinking, familiarity with AI and big data, leadership, and lifelong learning. And we ask another expert, who is Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. And he also has something interesting to say about the matter. And that is, students need to be taught resilience and adaptability. They need to understand that learning is lifelong. It is no longer enough to have a single 4-year stretch degree and then be prepared for the world. Learning has to continue, okay? Creativity and familiarity with AI tools. So there's a lot of similarity between what Sam Altman is saying and what came out of the World Economic Forum. And of course, no generative AI-based presentation will be complete without asking ChatGPT what it thinks students need to thrive in the future. And ChatGPT comes up with a very, very similar list. Creativity and critical thinking, ethical AI education, interdisciplinary approach, so understanding various perspectives, digital and data literacy, which is knowledge of the tools, human-to-machine collaboration, again, knowledge of the tools, and soft skills, which are leadership, collaboration, and so on. So there seems to be consensus among the experts on what needs to change. But how are we going to get there? And the way to get there, and if I can give a lot of thanks to Ms. Hiba Aish. Is she still here in the audience? There you are. The presentation she gave just before mine was absolutely amazing because it's all about collaboration between entities that typically have not needed to talk to each other before, which is educational establishments need to understand from industry what skills are needed because they are in the know, they are the experts. Dr. Al-Arayad, is he still in the audience? No, he mentioned that if you want to know what is needed, you need to ask the industry experts. So industry experts need to guide educational establishments. Educational establishments need to work with households, with parents to start to instill a lot of these attributes and characteristics at an early age. The custodians of education, the regulatory bodies, the ministries of education need to play a very active role in working with all of the above to shape future curriculums, and partners and consultancies and experts in the field from all around the world are key players in all of this because they can help facilitate all of this and make sure that it's driven in a direction that does deliver results. In the words of a great man that needs no introduction, there is a lot of hope in the future of youth. Now, this is a very clear message, but it's interesting to understand what is being said between the lines, because in order for youth to be up to the responsibility of delivering and thriving and driving economies and countries forward, they need to be educated in the right way. So indirectly, what is being said here is various engines, various entities in Bahrain need to collaborate in order to prepare the youth for the leadership role that they are soon going to be in charge of. And many other great men have talked about this issue and have given their opinions about this issue. Many great educators, a lot of them are either in the hall room here or are next door, have said very similar things. There's one I would like to single out, mainly because of an article that was written. And that's Professor Nix. You are there. President of Euro University of Bahrain. And the reason I want to single this out is in an article that he wrote talking about shaping tomorrow's leaders, just have a look at the 5 main things that his expert opinion says that matter. Embracing technology, which is familiarity with the tools, cultivating soft skills, so that's your leadership, that's your communication, looking at diversity and inclusion. These are key things for Generation Z because such is the nature of this generation. Encouraging entrepreneurial mindset and readiness, so that is leadership, and lifelong learning. So it mirrors what all the other experts have said so well. I just had to include it in this presentation. Another set of interesting choice of words is shaping tomorrow's leaders, not engineering tomorrow's leaders, okay? And creating an environment, not fitting people into boxes. This is the spirit of change that all of us in positions of power owe the students, owe the young generation in Bahrain and around the world to prepare them for successful leadership roles to continue to place Bahrain on the map. And with that, I thank all the people that came before me. I thank the organizers. I thank all the distinguished guests. And thank you all for your attention. Yeah. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Nope. All right. Thank you very much. Question? Okay. So the question was, as educators, how do we work with students to make sure that they use the generative AI tools appropriately. Don't use them for creating their assignments, but rather use them to help grow knowledge and to use them ethically. So there's a lot of education that needs to take place. Step one starts with educating the educators. There are so many tools out there, and it is important that the point of reference be set at the educational establishment and at the educator's level. The educator is responsible to explain the tools, explain the benefits of using them, to explain ethical use of the tools, which is you can use tools for, as with anything, you can use tools for good and for evil. You can use tools to increase your knowledge. You can use tools to gather different opinions. You can use tools to organize unorganized thoughts. You can use tools to get references from around the world. And you can use tools to fine-tune certain aspects. So for example, if you are a person that needs to write a report in a certain language, and that language is a barrier, there are tools that can be used so that that is no longer a barrier. But it comes down to how do you instill the right ethics, how do you instill the right behaviors in students, and maybe that's a responsibility also shared by the household, by parents, because there's always peer pressure to succeed, there's always pressure from the parents to excel. And using the tools can give people an unfair advantage. So perhaps there's a universally applicable responsibility on anyone in a position of influence to explain how these tools are best used. Does that answer the question? All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much.